there's a bit of vanity in every actor, in every, I'm not sure in comedians, but in every actor. But the idea that the first show is still out there, and I'm 42 in that show, and then 63 in this one, and that people look at me and you can hear them, that's not him. He's old. He can't hear us. If that's him, even when I can't hear, they still. It's a bit. I walk on stage and I go, I know I look like a lady told me I look like an old George Lopez. And they all start clapping. I was like, shit, that's all right, take it easy. But my next special is probably going to be called Old George Lopez.
It's my pleasure to introduce you to comedian, actor, producer, disruptor, glass ceiling shatterer, Latino, Chicano, as well as father, mentor, and friend, George Lopez.
Thank you. I have to make sure. Latinos in the house.
That's why everybody's late.
That's why everybody's in the front. Yeah, I had to make sure I didn't fall. I think when you get older, you fall just to fall, I think. Your balance leaves. Yeah. Ya viejo.
Well, George, you and I have recently only just met.
Yes.
But we've met because of Lopez versus Lopez. But I want you to know that myself, and I'm here representing so many like me, that you have been a part of my family, whether you knew it or not, for at least 20 years.
Man. Yeah, thank you. I think part of that, unfortunately, is not having much of a family myself. I think that when things are going kind of in your direction, maybe you say if you have, opportunity when you're younger, I don't think you work as hard as when you realize that it might be harder than you thought. That's what I would say.
Well, and you also just had a big birthday, so do you have any moments where, you can give it up for him, he just had a birthday. And now this, and now with this retrospective, do you take any moments and just maybe look back on your life and your career and everything that you've gone through to get to where you are?
That's a really good question. And I would say that absolutely yes. And I think years ago, like in the 90s, though, this guy, when I was in the clubs, I was really funny before, I got a chance to be on TV, And then the guy said to me, do you know why you're so funny? And I said, I don't know. And then he said that the fact that you don't think you're funny is why you're so funny, because you work like you're not funny, but you're funny. So I think I overdid it with the work. I worked a lot for a short amount of time, but I think that it created a work ethic that I don't think anybody could duplicate, even back then.
So it's going to be weird if I ask you when was the first time you realized you were funny, because you don't think you're funny.
Yeah, I think that I know I'm funny, but do I think I'm funny? I think I can be better. So I think that's why when somebody says, why are you still doing stand-up at this age, and I think the answer is that when I had nothing, I had my sense of humor. And when I was pushed into a corner, something always would come to me. And it never left. It's never left my side. And I don't think that still doing stand-up, or, today we were writing this morning, and I don't think when you have a gift like that it's not anything that you leave behind. I think I'm gonna take it with me the whole time. And like at the, you saw the season finale of the Lopez versus Lopez, and the whole year was about trying not to drink, very honest discussions, I think last year too. We had that moment with the piñata. I think in therapy they have you hit, I don't think they have you hit piñatas of somebody you're having issues with. I think they just have you hit a horse or whatever, but not an actual person, So that was already, for the comedic value, awesome. But also at the end of the show, when Mayan and Quentin, proposed to each other, and that would have been the end, I had the ad-lib of, "This calls for some champagne." Mm-hmm. And they were like, "Hey," because I'm not supposed to be drinking. And I just thought that, that coming into my head, or the other one where Mayan, with the new scene starts after I mess up their engagement party. And Mayan says, "This is the worst case of Latino parenting I think I've ever seen." And in rehearsal, I said, "What about the Menendez brothers?" And TikTok is trying to get those cabrones out of prison. Yeah. Listen, if TikTok can get the Menendez brothers out of prison, I'm spending all my time on social media. I'm not even gonna mess around with people in real life. It's a very powerful tool, social media. So I would say that the fact that they still come to me at the right time, when sometimes early on in the beginning, and we would do things, and they'd say, "You have anything to add?" And I would say, "No." And then in the car, I'd be like, "Oh, shit." But then now they're all in sync. So one of the things that I do that I've always done, and I don't think it's probably the healthiest thing, is I spend a lot of time alone. And even the dogs, like, here's my life now, Started with nothing, no mom, no dad, no real family, abandoned by kind of everybody in my family. Never asked them for help because why would I? And then, I get a kidney transplant 19 years ago. I've been healthy for 19 years, overcame obstacles, have a pretty good career, but if a dog barks, I lose my fucking mind. Like, it has to be quiet. There's a dog, and if anybody saw me talk to those dogs, they'd go, "Man, this dude is out of his mind."
So are you saying that Churro is intimidating you on the show?
If there's a dog that's barking, yes.
I'm intimidated. Churro?
Even little Churro, who has its own fan club.
Listen, when I was on set, I was waiting for a meet and greet, and she didn't have time for me. She left.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah, and they found Churro in the street. So a lot of my co-stars, I don't remember his name, but the dog from Beverly Hills Chihuahua that played Papi, they were looking for a dog like that, kind of there's a lot of different Chihuahuas, some that shake all the time. Yeah. And it'd be 110 and they found him in San Bernardino, and then they had a person looking for the dog. They showed the picture, and when he stood, he looked very, like one of the warriors, a Mexican Aztec warrior. And they said, "Man, we got to get this dog." And they said he was at a shelter, and they said, "Can you save him till tomorrow?" And the person goes, "I don't think I could save him. So I think you better get over here like right now." And they went and got him, and he was a rescue that was in an actual shelter. And Noelle, I think that's the dog's name, they found on the street, and then she's a TV star. Debbie, didn't she have interviews and stuff? She dog had interviews. I don't know. But I think everybody in that show is having some success in their own way. Yeah.
Well, that's the magic of Lopez versus Lopez.
Yeah.
Congratulations, you just got a season 3 renewal.
And Debbie Wolf, who is the showrunner and creator, who saw Mayan's TikTok. Mayan did a TikTok of responding to someone who you saw, who was taking on her mom because of my infidelity towards her mom. And this kid was like, in the deathbed, and then I don't know what else, some money things, and it was pretty bad towards me. And then Mayan responded to him by, saying her mom got the bag, which she did. I used to tell Ann, my biggest fear is us being poor. Well, after the divorce, my biggest fear was me being poor. When people would come to me, they'd say, "Do you have some money to donate?" I said, "You're talking to the wrong Lopez. The other one has all the money, but deservedly so." But Mayan, who was really never that person, never somebody to take somebody on, took that dude on in the TikTok and danced and twerked upside down in defense of her mother, which of course, And I remember Anthony. We were playing golf that day, and Anthony Anderson said to me, "Did you see Mayan's TikTok?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "What do you think about it?" And I said, "Well, what can I do? She's a grown woman, and she didn't make it up. I said, I just have to deal with whatever the consequences are." And he said, "Word." And I said, "If the consequences are creating a brand new show, I'll deal with that." So Debbie Wolf, who's here, Latina showrunner, creator, goddess, insomniac, thank God. I'm telling you, everybody thinks insomnia is bad. All the good ideas are going to come between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. in the morning. Nobody who's up during the day ever is going to have a brilliant idea. Not when you're going medio asleep and awake. I got it. I think, but without Debbie, we wouldn't be here. But also, the eye-opening thing was, as difficult as it was to be on TV the first time, it was harder the second time. And I was already known. And then you think that, when you have the first show that syndicates in the history of TV, that, I always say, this is one of the things, I don't say it, but I don't mind saying it, is that Desi Arnaz was Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz. I Love Lucy. Mm-hmm. And Chico and the Man was Freddie Prinze and Jack Albertson, and Chico wasn't his name. And the third one was George Lopez, and I'm George Lopez. So, I have to say that the minute that show was over, you would think that people would be, hit George up and see if he has any other ideas. Zero. So if you're going to get in, you have to really work hard to stay in, because when you're not in, every day that goes by, you're further and further away. And that's why I'm very thankful and appreciative of Debbie, because she gave me a second time around that I could not have, I know for a fact, done myself. So thank you. Woo! One Latina's heart closes, another one opens.
Now, I want to talk about the George Lopez show and Lopez versus Lopez. They're versions of you that you are playing, right? And the first one, you're kind of dealing with some of your family thing. Yeah. And then on Lopez versus Lopez, it's a lot about your daughter.
I think I caught up to my personalities, In the first one, they would say to me, how much of this George is like your real character? And I said, I think that this one's more fun than the original, than the real character. And it wasn't, no one, here's the crazy part is no one asked me if I could act at any time. They saw me do stand-up, but no one said, "Can I ask you a question?" "Yeah, come over here where nobody can hear us." "Can you act?" And I would say, I've never acted before, but I think I can. And so you never acted? You never been in a movie? I said, I've been in I'm at the ski patrol count. So nobody asked me. So when we were writing the first script, the pilot script about me having to fire my mom, great script. And that's what really kind of accelerated that show. I read with Valente Rodriguez, who played Ernie, you know, the whole thing. Great guy from Ilsa, Texas. Great. Blood in, blood out. Aaron Brockovich. So an actor. And it was like the end of December before the Christmas vacation, and they said, why don't you guys, you know, do this scene together? And I was terrible. And I looked back, and Bruce and Robert were both looking at me like, this dude can't act. And then they said, yeah, it's all right, you know, sit down. That's good, sit down. And I saw in their eyes, where maybe nobody else would see in somebody's eyes, but I saw in their eyes that they had a concern whether I was going to be able to act or not. And when I got home that day, I called my manager and I said, hey man, you have to find me an acting coach like today because, you know, I can't act. And he said, all right. And this is how bad of an actor I was. When I went to go read with her, she would say, okay, let's read. And I would read to myself. And she would say, let me hear you say it. And then I would say, no. How about why don't you tell me how you want me to do it, and then I'll remember it, and then when I go do it, I'll do it over there. Because I was a little bit dyslexic, so if I read it, I might not understand it, but if you told me, I would get it, I would hear it. And she would, you know, say something, and I would turn my head and I would say, you know, say it again, and then I would say, okay, I got it. But that's how I couldn't even read in front of a private acting coach. I mean, that's how kind of closed off I was. And I was like, man, I mean, that was a big obstacle to overcome. Because not only if you can't read out loud, how are you gonna act? You can't even read. If you're reading and you're going, this fucking dude's reading. But then you have to interpret it and then create your character. So in the beginning, I mean, I think I did okay. I mean, I bugged out my eyes in the beginning. They gave me shit because I bugged out my eyes. And then I saw it in the LA Times, and then I immediately stopped doing it. You know, because once the LA Times, you know, then people would say, hey, that guy bugs out his eyes. And
Deadline would have never done that.
Man. So I would go, what? When? You know, and I'm glad I did because I got to see how specific everything was going to be, and how there wasn't going to be a lot of room for failure. So it immediately went away, and I worked way harder than everybody else. I don't even think anybody really knows how hard I worked in the beginning, but I worked harder than everybody else on that show, and I'm pretty sure on the lot at Warner Brothers, because I knew that was my end and I did not want to go out. But I will say that one thing that did help me was indirectly was that was the year that Jennifer Lopez wore that Versace dress to the Grammys, the green dress. Yeah. So once I started to be able to act, and we did the 4 shows that were going to air in March and April of 2002, we went to ABC, and they had we had a publicity meeting for, you know, how we were going to promote the show, and all of it was like not very good, and we're like, fuck, this is not fair. Their ideas are not very good. You know, this is ABC, man. This is not very good. And at the end, somebody said, show him. And back then, they had cards, not like now. You know, everything's, you know, like this. Back then, they had storyboards. So the person said, we didn't know how you would react to this, but, you know, here it is. And they lifted it up, and it was me in the Versace dress with work boots and white socks, with one leg out, cut down the middle, with work boots and white socks, and it said the other Lopez.
I feel like I saw that.
And it said G-Lo, not J-Lo. And it had the night we were going to premiere, and that I believe. And I did a promo in the dress. And I believe that was the sliver of light that we needed to get in and to be seen. And I think that was a huge help to the launch of the show.
That was so smart.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now.
And they weren't sure if I was going to do it. I said, I'll do it. I didn't even think twice. I thought it was a great idea.
Now, on top of that, did it add extra stress on you dealing with having to face some of your traumas through your character, or did it help you?
That's a really good. That's a great question. I think the pilot was about me having to fire my mom because I worked with my grandmother when I worked during the day, and my grandmother would drive us, and she would punch in her friends that weren't there yet, and I would say, in Van Nuys, I would say, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Shut up." And I said, no, for reals, what are you doing? I'm punching in people that are going to be here, but they're not here right now. I'm like, I don't think that you can punch in people that aren't here right now, but that you think are going to be here later. Shut up. And I told Bruce that, and it went in there.
Bruce Helford?
Bruce Helford, yeah. Who's involved with Lopez versus Lopez as well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. If you want to talk about manifestation, because that's how people talk about, right? People that manifest their thing. Okay, so whatever anybody else manifests, it doesn't matter, because I think that if somebody really set their mind to it, that you can manifest your destiny as well. And I think part of manifesting is never tell anybody what it is, because then if you're telling somebody, how's it going to be a manifestation? So when Drew Carey was working with Bruce Helford on the Drew Carey Show that was on ABC, and it was a huge hit, I would see, because I knew Drew Carey, and he started like, I did, and I would say, Bruce Helford, man, I want to do my show with Bruce Helford. And then Tim Allen had a show, and he had Matt Williams, who was another incredible showrunner. I worked on The Cosby Show, and then he worked on Home Improvement from the first episode. And I would say to myself, if I had to have two guys to work with, I would pick Matt Williams and I would pick Bruce Helford. And I did two real sitcoms, and one I did with Bruce Helford and one I did with Matt Williams. So it came true.
Wow.
Yeah. And I wasn't even good enough to work with Matt Williams, and I still did it. Man, that guy's amazing. He's amazing.
So I want to go back a little bit to my original question, as far as like because you're doing the same now on Lopez versus Lopez.
Yeah.
You and your daughter are
Yes.
tackling situations that you've done so.
Yes. So to answer the question, yes. I think it was maybe the first or second season. I didn't know my father in real life, and we wrote a story about if I met him, well, how would I behave? How would it be? And so we hired this actor, Willie Marquez. God rest, passed away. Willie Marquez was amazing. He played my father for this arc, and I go and see him in the office, and I can't believe it's him. And it was just, he was really good, and very grounded. And I don't think I was giving John Pasquin, who was directing, what he was looking for, the emotion, kind of almost that Antoine Fisher kind of thing, at that time, And when we were going to do one of the kind of third or fourth take, John Pasquin came around the corner and he said, you never met your father, right? And I said, no. And he said to me, treat this take like your father's going to watch it. Like, even though you've never met him. And I was like, wow, man. And I did. I mean, I punched Willie, and he went flying over this thing because he insulted my mom. And I think the story was that, I could insult her, but nobody else. Mm-hmm. And I think in our families, if you can say something about somebody and then someone else says, hey man, I can talk like that about her or him, you can't. I earned that. And since he had ran out, I thought it was a very real emotion, and I think that was another big part of it too. I don't think anybody was really paying attention to much of that stuff when the show started. At least I don't think so. But it's there now to look at. There's quite a bit of it too.
Would you say it's easier now when with Mayan, now that you're these years older, you're more,
Yeah, I'm very. It's more. I could look at mine and just start crying from just being proud, you know. But I can only tell Maya. If I was going to say anything critical of Mayan, I can only say. You know, I would only say it to her, but I could only say one thing. I can't say two. You know. So this year she came into my dressing room early on, and I said, "Hey, Mayan, I think that you should get an acting coach." And she went like this. And I said, no. I mean, you know, don't you want to be the best that you can be? And she took my advice, and she started working with this guy who was a director, Ren. And I mean, if he's as good a director as he is a coach, he's brilliant, because Mayan's second season, all 10 episodes, leading up to the end, she's amazing. Not like somebody who's only done 32 episodes of TV, somebody beyond that experience. So what she's been able to do in 32 episodes, learning how to do multi-camera, but also never having done it before, or never having asked me, "Hey, how do you do this?" You know, she wasn't going to ask me, and she still, you know, figured out the best way to do it is with, you know, a trained professional, not with me.
Well, maybe you don't know this. I did a really nice interview with her, and she told me that she learned so much by observing you acting. So, for example, if we're going back to the piñata example, which I'd love to kind of break down, because that was such an emotional scene, and I wondered, and this is what I asked her. I said, are you viewing George Lopez, the actor, the character, or are you viewing your dad? So when you're in that moment and you're beating up your likeness in a piñata, what was going through your mind? Are you acting? Or was that some of you?
Well, I mean, there's not that many of us in here. You guys won't tell anybody. You know, everything is a bit of a, you know, I wouldn't say not everything's a bit of a joke, but everything is lighthearted. You know, in most sitcoms, you know, and with us, they're not as lighthearted. Some things are very real. And I used to think that I didn't know enough to be, like an actor would say, you know, I need to prepare for what's going to happen out there. I don't want, you know, I can't. So all during the day, and we did it, I think, twice the day before, and then we wanted to do it once in front of the audience, but they didn't know what was going to happen. I mean, you know, they didn't know the script, where you know, we beat this piñata of me that looks like me, and I said, you know, nobody wants to do this, and they all start ripping at it, but then saying what I've done to them, you know. And mine, when she was hitting it, was really comedic, but also very serious. And toward the end, I think she said, "And making me not trusting men." Yes. And the way that she said it, I couldn't laugh, because I was looking at her, but inside I was like, man, she did that so well, so good. And then it was my turn, and then Cheisha Campbell said, you know, "Time to face yourself." You know, that's, wow, that's, yes. Yeah. So I hit it once, and I said, "It's not breaking." She's like, "Hit it harder." I hit it again, harder, and again, and she goes, "Hit it harder." And then, you know, I started to hit it and saying, you know, you're destroying the lives of people around you, and you're chasing everybody away that loves you, and you can't stay sober, and you can't do this. And the piñata wasn't breaking like it was supposed to break at the fourth one. And
that was not an actor piñata.
It wasn't cooperating. But in a sense, it worked out for the best, because I hit it, and I was supposed to be done with it. So I hit it again, and then slightly in my head, I said, well, I can't stop hitting it. Got to keep hitting it. And then I hit it again, and I said something else, but then I knew what I had to end on. Why can't you be better? And I hit it, and all the candy fell out of it, and I fell to the ground, and I think I was maybe crying.
Yeah.
And Mayan put her hand on my shoulder, and I think that was more real than acting. I think that was really me, because you know, we all have our, I don't want to say demons, because that sounds terrible, but we all have our weaknesses. And one of mine has been alcohol. It's been a strength. It depends who you're talking to. I mean, if you look at it for sheer volume, I think it's a strength. But if you look at it as the destruction, then it's a weakness. But it has not served me well, I would say. So I am trying to eliminate it.
Well, you have
for the first time in my life.
And you have George Lopez, the character.
Yes.
That has your back.
But I still golf, so it's going to be hard. I mean, at church you can only drink, wine when you confess, and they give you a little something to drink on the way out. But I'll get a hold of it, And at the shows, everybody now knows, their triggers. My trigger is, as soon as I get off stage and we go to the dressing room, and there's music playing. As long as there's no music playing, I'm fine. Or as long as I leave right after. But also, as you get older, you just can't. Your body. I don't know why you can't. But I think when you get older,
your liver
struggles to process it. Struggles to process. And when I had my kidney transplant, everybody was like, "Shouldn't he give up drinking, doctor?" And then the doctor would say, "That's liver," and I would say, "Yes."
Now, there were some other little special moments this season. You got to see Mayan get engaged, and you saw her in a wedding dress.
I did.
What was that like for you?
Yeah, and as a little girl, I think more older little girls, my age, always wanted to be married, so they would pretend, they would put trapes on their head, and they would say, "This is what I'm gonna look like when I get married." But mine never did that, and never even did a meme or anything about her being married. So it was quite emotional for me to see her, and I can't imagine myself a grandfather either. By the way, if I'm fortunate enough to still be around, if mine becomes a mother and I become a grandfather, that'd be something else. I could never have imagined myself as a grandfather.
But you're so good on Lopez versus Lopez.
I would try to be better than my grandfather was to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but those things, if those things happen, I mean, it's truly the life is beautiful, seriously beautiful. I don't think I've ever said life is beautiful before, but I think it is. I think it is.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it is.
Woo.
It's not. I think I'm more sentimental not drinking than drinking. I like it. What they call them, dry drunks.
Yeah.
No.
What changed in your life that put you on this path where you were like, okay, things have got to change?
To be in the business and to be as a comedian known. I did the Tonight Show in '91. I did a bunch of Arsenio's and, a bunch of specials and stuff. So you're known there, in that place. And that's really a lot of fun. I mean, where all people see you in other countries and things, and they're, they can't believe you're there. Or, really African-American community as well, like really kind of took me in, where they would see me, they would really show me a lot of love. And Latinos too, like all ages and, kids. I remember I woke up in the middle of the night in probably like 2006, and when I was, I don't know how I thought 2006 and 1973 were like 7 years apart. Because I woke up in the middle of the night and I remembered that when I was in San Fernando Elementary School, that every Christmas somebody would bring us presents. Like it wasn't a real affluent school, public school, but somebody would, donate presents, and most of them were.
Police. Like for my school, it was police.
It was the police?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But in this one, they'd say the police told. In this one, we don't know who it was. So I called the school and I said, "Hey, do you guys still do give away presents?" And they're like, "What? Hell no! They haven't done that since like 1973."
Wow.
And I didn't realize it was 30 years. Didn't realize it was 30 years. So I started doing it, and I've been doing it every Christmas since 2006.
Aww.
I still do it. And the first year, this little kid came up to me and he said, "You're real. I didn't think that you were real."
Oh, don't make me cry.
Yeah. And I said, I'm real puto, get back in line. We don't have no compliment line, get in line. No, but it really got me. I mean, it really got me. In the same auditorium where I would, perform in the little Christmas plays. This gacho, man, because you don't know what's ever going to be wrong with you, We were doing a play, The Three Wise Men in 4th grade, and they brought some sandals, and my big toe was too big to fit in the sandals.
Aww.
So I had to do it in tennis shoes. When is a wise man with tennis shoes on? Gacho, but the fact that my big toe didn't fit in there, man, I was like, damn. Just like my head was so big that it didn't fit the kids' hats. So they were saying, how come your coach is not wearing a hat? Is that because I took his hat because my head only fit in a man's head as an 8-year-old.
You were growing disproportionately.
It's fucking terrible. It's terrible shit, man. Terrible. And all those things I used in the shows and still used in the shows. I thought, in order to really ground something, you have to make yourself vulnerable in the things that make you uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did. But I also said to a few people after the second season, maybe next season I'm not so bad at that. I think we've accomplished that thing. But also I know that when I do travel and see people, surprisingly, I've had celebrities. Warren Beatty told me one time, hey, I love your shows. But when a Grubhub driver tells you he loves the show with your daughter, to me, the fact that he watches it somehow meant everything to me, that somebody that works that hard at all different hours would know, and know that the show got picked up and said, congratulations on season 3, missing some food. That would mean more to me than, a compliment from an established actor.
Well, let's talk about that. I want to go back to before the George Lopez show, your journey to getting that show made, and at a time where the industry, that's why earlier I'm like, you're a disruptor. There was an industry that either ignored our existence or they didn't know what to do with us because everybody has an idea. Like
True.
we're Spanish speakers or, the telenovela crew, and
True.
not all of us are like that. And you came in and, I grew up with Roseanne.
Yep.
And the Huxtables. So it was always like, I was never a Connor kid or a Huxtable kid, and I didn't know where I fit until the George Lopez show. I was actually a Lopez.
Man, that's really something. I mean, that you said it. And I think it, since there's very few opportunities, I went to Paramount to meet a writer that was working on Cheers or had been on Cheers. And I think his name was Dan, probably shouldn't say his name, Shaughnessy. And I went in there and he said to me, I know that we're supposed to meet, had this down, didn't want to cancel the meeting, but I have to tell you, I don't know how to write for you, or I don't know how to write for anybody like you. And I said, what do you mean anybody like me? He goes, Latino, I'm not Latino, I don't know how to write Latino. And I said, well, why would you worry about writing Latino? Why don't you just write a good story? Why don't you just write a story? And he was like, I don't have the time to do that. And I said, all right. And, it's an eye-opening thing. And I believe that happened for a reason, because when we do these shows, I never say, let's write a Latino story. I said, let's write a good story. And even in the first show, I said, let's just write good stories and I'll put the color in. I'll decide how much color needs to be in, but let's write a good story first. Yeah. And that was a combination that's been very successful. So, yeah, thank you. So, if you get mad and leave, or if you get mad and make a scene, you look crazy. And I knew enough to just take the insult and slide out. Like, I wasn't going to let it destroy me or define me. And I would just find somebody. But all of those things all meant something until, I met Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
It's funny to even say. And yeah, wow, man. I mean, can't believe I'm talking about that. It's been almost 24 years, maybe. Sandra Bullock lived in Austin, or still lives in Austin, and she was really into the culture and she had done Miss Congeniality, and her career was, I think she was like the #1 actress, and I know she'd become very kind of disillusioned with Hollywood. It's a lot of people who find success, do, but also she's going through a very tough time personally, and decided to maybe step back a little bit. I don't know how long it was going to be, but she wasn't finding the joy I think that she expected. But also, she wanted to produce a show with some Latino characters, and I think she tried to do one for CBS, and it didn't work. And I think people had told her, "Have you seen George Lopez?" And she was like, "I haven't seen him." And she saw me and then came backstage and said to me, I want to abandon the idea that I had, which was more for the teenagers to be the primary characters. And I want you to come to my office, and I think we should sit down and talk about what's in your family, because it's like a train wreck and I can't turn away. That's what she said. I said, yeah. I said, all right. It kind of is. And that's what we did. And almost to sabotage myself, because sometimes we think we're not good enough, I was supposed to go meet her at 1 o'clock, but I was hitting golf balls over there at Whitson in the Valley, and my manager called me at like 11:30. He says, "Are you on your way?" I said, "Man, I'm not going over there." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "What's she gonna do for me?" He goes, she's waiting for you. They asked, and this dude was always eating, And he's like, they called and they asked you what you wanted for lunch. This was always eating. I think if they said there was no lunch, I think he would have said, "Don't go." But the fact that they had food, he was like, "Hey man, they called and asked us what we wanted for lunch." And I left the golf balls there. I remember telling the guy next to me, I said, "You can have these balls if you want. There's a bunch of them." And I went. And we sat there for 3 hours, and she laughed that like snort, that snort laugh that she does in the movies.
Oh, yeah.
And on the way out, she walked me out, and we got to the bottom of the stairs, and I said, "Hey, I just want, whatever happens," I think I've said this, I said, "Whatever happens, I just want to say that I appreciate, this, and you taking an interest in me, but you're going to try to do something that's never been done successfully in the history of TV. Yeah. So whatever becomes of this, I just want to say thank you." And she said, "Why don't you worry about being funny, and why don't you let me worry about all that other stuff?"
Wow.
And yeah. I haven't talked to her in 10 years, but at least in the beginning, it was great.
Well, you can call her right now. We'll wait.
Yeah, no, I know. She's very extremely, extremely private, and I respect her privacy, but she knows where we are,
But especially for somebody who has had so much sadness,
yes.
Sometimes you just need somebody to believe in you.
I think that at that time I could not believe what she would say to me. I never, never. And, some people that I asked to be part of the show in the beginning to do promos and stuff, people who are my friends now said no. I asked an actor that he and I are very close, and I don't think he'd even remember. He said, "I can't, but, kind of TV's not my thing." He was a movie actor. But
Name him.
But he, I think at that time, he was, he thought it was an episode. And then he ended up doing an episode of the show. So he came around. But in the beginning, you need a little help. You need a little help. Lorena Gordon's not in here, is she? She's always around the things that I don't know how she finds out. Are you? Yeah. They're not. I knew she would be in here. She comes to everybody, but I'm gonna tell you the story. Do you want to tell the story? No, you come over here and you tell it. Come down. Come down here, you tell it. I told her to call me at 1 today. I'm elusive. Like, some dogs, you can't catch them, they're in front of you. And they get by you, like, how do you get by me? There's no space. This is Lorena Gordon. She's going to tell you what she's done.
Lorena. And we'll do. Hey, girl. Nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. Hello. So I'm going to share this story. I had written a short film loosely inspired by my experience and something I was very passionate to make. And while I was bouncing the ideas of who could play a version of my father, George came to mind. I grew up watching his show, and I remember running home, every Friday evening to watch his show. And seeing him in representation meant everything to me. So I was like, oh my God, secretly, I want him to play this role. It's one of those things where he was talking about manifesting earlier, and it's so true. I put it out in the universe, and it was kismet. My brother and I were driving in Marina del Rey, and I just happened to look to my right, and I saw this man walking up to his Escalade, leaving a studio. And I told my brother, stop the car, and he stops the car, and I jump out, and I run up to him, and he's about to get in, and I just scream, George! And he's a gentleman, and he gets out, and he sees me, and he says, hi. I was like, hi, my name is Lorena. I'm a huge fan. I had just moved here from New York. I want to be a writer-director. And he took the time, and it's very often you meet people that you admire, and it's very quick, right? A quick interaction. But with him, it felt very different. It felt very genuine. And I just told him, I have this story. I would love to work with you. And I didn't know what he saw in me, but it means a lot that he saw something. And he said, let's keep in contact. And I took his word, and we were able to make the short film that is streaming on Max currently. And it had a very successful festival run. And we're working on the feature now. So it just takes that one person to believe in you. And, that's why he is my Sandra Bullock. I tell him all the time.
You did the snort really well.
No, and thank you. Yeah, thank you. It was great to do. Thank you. But then also in the short, it was at the LA Film Festival, Latino Film Festival, and Miguel Angel Soto, who directed Blue Beetle, was in there watching different movies at different times, and he went in there and saw me and said, George Lopez doing like serious and comedy, and that's how I got Blue Beetle.
Wow.
From that. So
one good turn.
Kindness to Lorena became kindness to me. I mean, if I don't know if you guys have seen Blue Beetle or not.
Please,
Yeah.
the question is, how many times have we seen it?
Yeah. If that movie would have been made and I would not have been Uncle Rudy, I don't think, I've had some, there's things that I went out for that I didn't get. But if I would have had to watch another actor be Uncle Rudy, I think it may have destroyed my soul.
You're the only Uncle Rudy. That
you.
character was perfect. I want to know if you kept the truck. That thing was souped up nice.
Are you kidding? Toyota, they have Toyota. With the pandemic, they have leftover cars.
It's a joke.
You think they would have gave me, the taco? Thank you for a great, nickname for our cars.
It played La Cucaracha.
It played La Cucaracha, had Animo on the front license plate. That was a big, I wouldn't say it wasn't a stretch, but it was to be in all of that hair and extension, and to be in the goatee and the shorts, and and be that person all the time was something that I wasn't sure if I could do, but I'm glad that I did it. I'm glad that it went so well. And then I was in the hotel room in Atlanta, and I was thinking, I gotta give this dude something that he does, because he's always like screaming, he's always kind of behind, he's all kind of like, everything's a revelation, And I said, when he gets overwhelmed, he's gonna faint for no reason. And when they took the truck and Damiano, he said, Rudy, he looks out the window. I'm like, no, he wouldn't take my truck. And I go over there, look out the window, and then I turned back and I said, Ma, he took the, hit my head on the wall and slid down. And I didn't tell any of the other actors that I was gonna do that. Of course not. And everybody laughed for 10 minutes on that stage. They couldn't believe it. It was almost like a team that, they hit the home run and they win the game and they can't leave the field, like they laughed and everybody went back and looked at it over and over again. It was really, really, really great. And what a great, and then Belissa Escobedo is on Reba's show.
Yes.
On NBC. So, another.
And Xolo has one more season.
Xolo has another season of
Cobra Kai.
Cobra Kai.
They just wrapped.
Yeah, great stuff that wasn't around 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and now it is. Latina showrunners
Yes.
and great Latina reporters, and they're in publicity. Really, I would say like like meeting you and having everybody love the show, and not just because they're Latinos, but just they understand it.
Yes.
Instead of somebody writing it about it that doesn't understand it. And 20 years ago, there was nobody.
Yeah, you help pave an industry and to prepare for somebody like me to be able to talk to somebody like you.
Well,
For the Lorenas out there to know that they could be directors.
I didn't know that, being around would bring that forward. But if that's the case, I want to be around another 20 years. So.
You have to.
I want to retire, but
No.
the thing is, I would say, there's a bit of vanity in every actor, in every, I'm not sure in comedians, but in every actor. But the idea that the first show is still out there, and I'm 42 in that show, and then 63 in this one, and that people look at me and you can hear them, that's not him. He's old. He can't hear us. If that's him, even when I can't hear, they still. It's a bit. I walk on stage and I go, I know I look like a lady told me I look like an old George Lopez, and they all start clapping. It was like, shit, that's all right, take it easy. But my next special is probably going to be called Old George Lopez. But yeah, and I'm still doing stand-up, and you know what? I wouldn't say it's as easy physically to get ready for it, but I still love it as much as I think I've ever done it, if not more, because it's given me so much, and I've asked so little of it. I just asked it, not even really asked it to always be there. It's just always been there, and I don't take that. I don't take that lightly. I honor that, being able to do that.
I want to talk about this magical moment that happened on Lopez versus Lopez. There was an episode where in season 1 where you got to connect with your old George Lopez family.
Oh.
And that has to have been a full circle moment for you. What insight can you give into what you were thinking when you're two different families?
Is this boring to most people? No? I was so closed off the first season of the first show, and you're the boss, George Lopez and the thing, and they would go, "Good morning, boss. Good morning. Hey, good morning. Good morning, boss. Good morning. Good morning, George. Good morning. Hey, how are you doing? Good morning." I go to my room early on, and the Belita, that played my mom, comes over and she goes, "What's the matter?" And I go, "Fuck." I said, "I'm a comedian. We're not used to anybody saying hello." Or good morning, 100 fucking good mornings every morning. Made me really uncomfortable. She goes, "Hey," she called me Flaco. "Hey, Flaco, you got to get out there, man. Like you're it." I said, I'm having a hard time. But we became like a family really quickly, and for Thanksgiving they had a big long table. I'm gonna start crying for sure, but. They had a really big, long table for like over 100 people, and with the tablecloth and flowers, and people brought food, and everybody was out there. And I went to my dressing room, and I couldn't go out there. And Valente, I remember Valente looked in the window. He's like this, and he goes in there, and I said, goes, "Hey, come on, man, everybody's waiting." And I said, "I can't go out there." And he's like, "How come?" And I said, "I've never been part of anything like that. And I can't do it. Like, I can't sit there. Like, I would be overwhelmed with emotion. Like, I couldn't do it." And he said, "Okay." Like, he got it. "Okay. All right." And he went back, and I think everybody asked where I was, and I think he told them, I think he's having a little bit of a difficulty being with everybody in that family dinner setting. And I didn't do it that year, but every other year after that, I did. And I do it now. So I mean, that's how kind of wounded I was. But just to me, I don't think Ann knew, or mine was 5. But those people meant everything to me. I mean, they meant everything to me. I mean, still now. So when we had the idea to bring them back to do the show, they were older, like the kid is in his 30s, Louis is in his 30s. And in the script, I mean, it was as simple as they were there, Belita was there, and Valente was there, emotional, and they introduced them, and, I'm like, wow, man, this is really something. And then we're reading, and, Selenis is there, and Mayan, and Matt, and Al, and they're, so the combination of both shows. And I think the line was I know how you don't think it's Christmas until there's like, 10 or more people here. So I went to the door and I opened the door and I had to say, hello, family, at the table read. And I couldn't say it. I was like, hello, and remember that, Debbie? Yeah. She's like, trying to forget.
Well, Scott, I imagine it has to have been very overwhelming to go from the boy who had no family to the man who has at least 2 families and all the families that you're a part of that were viewing you.
Yeah, I think the key to my comedy just reared its head. Like I said, remember that, Debbie? She goes, yeah, I care about that shit. I think you're right. Yeah. So I think also, as long as I'm that vulnerable to emotion, I think I'll do good work. But if I lost my heart, I think the heart and the work would go too. So I mean, really. So the other question was, do I realize what it means? And I do. Every second that I'm awake, and the minute I wake up, I even dreamed. Last night I dreamt that I was doing shows and my suit wasn't ready, and I was terrible on stage because I was wearing jeans. But yes, I do know what it is, and I do know what it means. And there's other testimonials in this room too. But you gorditos out here that somewhere. But Momo sneaked into the. Momo, come and tell your story. What is it? This is your life, la chica. But I wouldn't do it justice to tell a story. But Momo Rodriguez, he's reoccurring on the show.
I broke into Warner Brothers.
All right. I broke into Warner Brothers.
As a seat filler for a different show, and then I snuck in the bathroom for like about 2 hours. And I stayed there till security left. Then I wandered around the lot to look for the George Lopez show. I went in through the back, and I said I was his cousin that was coming back from the car, and I got lost in the back. And then I went in, and then I see he has the warm-up guy on stage, and I just say, hey, man, I wanted to meet George, and I get in trouble, I'm gonna get arrested. And then I just wanted to meet George. And then when I met George, I said, man, I'm a comedian, I wanna be like you, I wanna do what you do. And he told me, don't be scared. That's what you said. Don't be scared. That's the first thing you have to do. Don't be afraid of anything. And go to the ice house. And I did. Went to the ice house. I wasn't scared, and I was scared. And then I think I have it written in my room somewhere in that house, don't be scared. And then now I play his friend on the show, his employee, which is, and in real life, no.
I didn't manifest that. He did. But I mean, you know how that is? Like everything is connected? I mean,
Yes.
Yeah, I think everything's
He
connected.
just also needed somebody to believe in him.
I think sometimes, But also, if you don't believe in yourself, I think there's no, and no's are going to be, you know how they always say, don't take no for an answer. You know, you do have to take no for an answer. But no turns into yes if you hear no enough, you know. And, you know, I had quit at everything that I had done early on, but I didn't have any adults in my life to tell me that, hey, you know, when shit gets tough, you quit. And my baseball coach told me that I quit when everything got tough. And it couldn't have come from a friend of mine. It probably wouldn't have come from anybody in my family. It came from this coach. He was upset with me. And he said, I'd like to see where you are in 10 years. And we went at it. Like, I was a senior in high school. He was my baseball coach, and I respected that guy very much. And we went at it. And then when I started to play golf, it's very difficult to play. And when it would get tough, I would leave. I would tell the guys, oh man, I forgot I have to do something or this and that. But the only reason I was leaving is because it was too tough for me. And one time on the way back home, I was at a light and I thought, holy shit. I just thought, like in the movies, you know, you see the person's head over your shoulder. And I was like, oh man, this dude, he was right. And I looked at my life and all the things that I had quit at, which was everything. And I was probably out of school for 5 years, and I went back there one day when I knew the team would be practicing. And when they were, you know, because it's the same practice schedule kind of when I was there 5 years earlier. And I walked on the field, and he saw me coming, and he was like, is that my third baseman? That's what he said. And I told him why I was there, to apologize to him for the way that I had behaved when I was there. And I disrespected him, and I also said that he was right about me quitting, and he couldn't believe it. And he said, is that why you came to? I said, it's not only why I came. And I said, I've never apologized to anybody. And I said, I don't think that I could live properly going forward if I didn't come and tell you that I was sorry for the way that I behaved. And I had never, ever done that. You know, we're Latinos, and, you know, we would just eliminate that person, even if it's your fault. Yeah. You don't want to see that person.
I thought you were going to say you sent him a link to see you in the Versace dress, because that's what I would have done.
No.
I'm petty.
He was right. No, I was petty. And I meant it. And I think that was really the beginning of that really kind of, I'm not going to quit no matter what happens. And a manifestation. On my birthday of this year, April 23rd, 2004, April 23rd in 84, I grew up staying at a duplex in Pacoima of my friend Arnold, and I was unemployed, and my grandfather had kicked me out of the house, and I had really nothing going on, and I was like sitting there, and I said, what am I gonna do with the rest of my life? And I had already done stand-up, but I'd quit, and I'd go, and I'd quit, and I'd go. And that morning I said, I'm gonna go back and do stand-up, and I'm not gonna quit no matter what happens. And 40 years later, we went to that for-year consideration luncheon on my birthday across the street from the Comedy Store, 40 years after I had made the promise not to quit. Wow. Yeah, so I mean, maybe nobody else would understand what that means or forget the days. I never do. You know, all the days mean something. All the accomplishments mean something, and all, you know, the disappointments as well. All they probably have equal value.
So earlier you were saying how not everybody was, you know, rushing to be a guest star on the George Lopez show. Yeah. And then when we look at Lopez versus Lopez, you have jam-packed it with amazing guest stars. And I know that particularly special one was Cheech and Chong for you.
Yeah.
Talk to me about...
Both of them.
Yes.
Cheech and Chong, yeah. I mean, they're legends.
Yes.
Icons. Everybody known around the world. Cheech and Chong, one name, you know. Thank you. And I asked them to be on the show, and they both said yes. And I met Cheech in 1981, and Tommy maybe 88. Bless you. And to have gone all that way and have them be that way and have them be there and be so happy, and that all of us did Mexican American at the end for the thing. It's just, yeah. I could watch it every day and not believe it. I mean, so it's from nobody wanting to be on, now everybody wants to be on.
Yes.
Even people from Vanderpump y la chica.
Yes!
They were great.
And Lisa Rinna, who played
And
your
Lisa Rinna
girlfriend.
está más buena la cabrona. Her too, yeah. Her too.
She needs to come back for season 3.
She does need to come back. I think I do well when I have women, I can't keep her. She only stayed 1 episode, but I think I do well when I'm set up with kind of women because it's just so like that awkwardness comes across.
Was it awkward to be back in bed with Rosy this season, where you guys like started to mess around a little bit? You had fallen off the wagon?
Yeah. She had found out that her fiance was dipping, of course, cochino, a lot of them, and that my falling off the wagon led to her drinking to get rid of that pain, and then we met up and we woke up together next to each other, which I love that. I've seen that in movies, and I mean, it's great. And to be able to be part of that, but also to have earned the right to do it and know that, if people watch the show, they know that we're at odds, and not very kind to each other. But when her life was crumbling, I was there.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great thing, to be able to be with somebody that you've been with and have, been a part of, away from each other. But then when something really happens, that person is there by your side, and they put everything that you've had, disagreements, to the side.
Which came first, that scene or the joke that you and Anne played on my end where you guys kissed on a TikTok?
Fucking TikTok. I don't know. I blacked out. I don't know. I think that came after, but yeah. Much like my relationship on TV, my relationship with Anne is also not entirely, but that's okay.
But would you say you've come a long way?
If I kissed her, I've come a long way. Yes.
Now that we're talking
But
about...
I'm better than I was. I mean, I was pretty bad there for a while. Because I think, when everything's brand new, you don't make the best choices. But although you're like running on fire. It's almost like if you're on fire and you're running and nobody can catch you until you put yourself out, and then you try to rebuild after that. Like, when the show was going on, there's a bit of excitement to all of that, and to be touring and to be doing HBO specials and to be, traveling, and you go everywhere. And then, the talk show was again 2 years of, I had Prince on the show, and I was in Prince's dressing room, and I bought him a hat. I'd had a hat made for him by this guy, Amin, God rest his soul, was in an accident in 2018. And I had a white box, had a feather, beautiful purple hat. And I said, Prince, I got you a gift. And he says, I can't accept gifts. I'm Jehovah's Witness.
yeah.
And I said, okay. So we were in there talking, and every once in a while he'd go, you have that made for me? And I said, yeah, I had it made for me. This guy in the family had been making hats for 100 years. Oh, cool, And then he's like, how's Arsenio? And I said, it's good. He asked about you, and he goes, that's for me, huh? I said, yeah, it's too bad. Too bad you won't, I said, at least take a look at it. And he had very dainty, he had very fingers, very proper, like, the nails are, and his hands were just really clean, like a surgeon with no gloves. Like, he didn't need gloves. Like, his hands just looked so perfect. And he lifted the top up and had crepe paper in there, and the purple, almost like an arm, aye, this purple feather pops out, aye, and it's a long purple feather, and he looks, and I said, yeah, yes. And he took it out, and he looked at it and turned it, and I'm like, And he got the brim, anybody that knows hats, I knew I had him. He looked at the brim, he went like this, like, He flicked the brim, and I said, I think I got him. And he put it on sideways with this big feather, and he walked like George Jefferson up and back like 4 times. With the hands in the back, like that. And and we were all laughing, and we're like, man, too bad you can't keep it. He said, no, I'm keeping this one. He wore it out. He wore it on the way to the car. And we walked him to the car. He was in a Stutz Bearcat and the big feather sticking out. And me and Michael Bearden were there. He was Michael Jackson's, band leader. And I said, man, who would have think there's Prince in a Stutz Bearcat? And Michael goes with a purple hat with a big ass purple feather. And I said, driving the wrong way down the street. I said, you drove yourself? And he's like, he used to do his eye roll. He went, George, I drive. And I guess he liked driving. Yeah, amazing night. So part of the talk show was that, not to begrudge other shows, but the 2 years that show was on, I mean, we had a very diverse group of actors and musicians, and Justin Bieber's first show, and Janet Jackson, and really Far East Movement, and Kesha, Justin Bieber's first talk show. So in the 2 years that it was on, it was groundbreaking, and it didn't end because it wasn't doing well. It ended because they'd prefer somebody else in there, but that person didn't do better than I did. He just looked different than I did.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's all right. I even called Jesse Jackson to try to save the show. He had lost all his power by then, I think. Oh. If it was 78, he probably would have done it, but. I think those people, the guys in Atlanta, I mean, and the thing was that TBS was in Atlanta and they weren't there. I think you had to almost be there in order to really understand how good the show was.
I want to know more about your influences. We talked about Freddie Prinze earlier. I know Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor, you guys remember Richard Pryor? Richard Pryor, man, where do I start? My best friend and my first friend in my life, Ernie Ariano, passed away the night before we did the pilot for this show. And I didn't tell anybody. So I went to work, and Ernie, as I thought about him and our friendship, he was the first person that got me into comedy. He was the guy that got me into going to rock and roll shows. He was the guy that got me into golf, and he got me into Richard Pryor. And it wasn't until he passed away that I realized that I had no good ideas myself, and that it was all him and his, he had older brothers. And then I was kind of a sad kid. Like, I had friends, guys that lived around the neighborhood, but you really had to really like me to be my friend, because you're like, what do you see in that dude? Like, his grandparents raised him, they're strict, he hardly ever goes out, he doesn't really talk that much. What do you see in that guy? And he was, I don't think I could have made it without him. And, when he passed away, it's very emotional. I mean, that night I went back to the neighborhood and drove around there. And I think, not that him passing, but I think also in that time when I was growing up, that his purpose was, I think, to put me on my paths, and help me. And he didn't want, I told him, hey, we can travel together and do all this, but he had his own life. I didn't realize until after that he had his own life, and he didn't want to live my life. He wanted to live his life. I thought it was because, he didn't want to be around me, but no, he had his own life. He didn't want that life.
Do you remember the first time you realized you were famous?
There's the one I think the one that I think means the most to me is, I went to a star ceremony, I think, for Derek Fisher. I think he hit that big shot against San Antonio in the playoffs. And I think they gave him a Hollywood star because he made it. I don't know. No, I don't think so. But he was getting a Hollywood star. And I went to his ceremony. I spoke at his ceremony. And Johnny Grant, the unofficial mayor, passed away. He looked at me and he said, because my 100th episode of the show was coming up. And he said, I think it's time we put you in the walk. And I said, yeah. I said, I'm not going in until Freddie Prinze goes in, from Chico and the Man, who committed suicide in January of '77. And he said, Freddie Prinze, he said, I think he's in. And I said, no, I don't think he is. He looked at his assistant. You check and see if Freddie Prinze is in. And then they called like 4 days later, and they said, he's not in, but if you want to get him in, you can sponsor him in. So I sponsored Freddie Prinze in, and his son was there. Thank you. Because I thought that, and the way that his life ended, a lot of people forgot him, but I didn't forget him. And if they had said to me, while the chamber doesn't want to, put him in because of maybe his drug abuse or whatever, if there would have been a reason why they wouldn't want him in, then I honestly would not have gone in had he not gone in. But he went in first, and then I went in. So to be given a Hollywood star in front of, it was only Sephora back then. Fucking right in front of Sephora. Beautiful.
That's an honor. That's an honor.
Viejas walking by. And now the Dolby Theater is right in front of my star. And September 28th and 29th, I will be filming my next special at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles.
That's my birthday.
Happy birthday. Well, it's 28th and 29th. You didn't hear the last part?
Yeah.
So both nights, and that's where it is. I think the show's going to start with me being on the star and then walking in the theater. That makes sense to me right now. But I mean, it's crazy, right? So then that day that we did the star for the 100th show, I think I thanked everybody in the world. They were making fun of me, and then I looked over, and Ernie was there, and the guys I grew up with were there, and that was amazing. That's when I realized the first time I might have been like, and Sandra was there after everything, and mine was there, and Antonio Villaraigosa, the mayor, was there. I mean, everybody was there. Mariachi de la chinga. So yeah, it was very exciting.
In a moment like that, do you ever think about the little boy, the little George, struggling alone, and here he is on top of the world, his own star?
Yeah, I tried that on Ben Kingsley. What you just did to me, and I said, you ever think there's a little boy with you? Because he had a rough childhood, and he goes, yes. He goes, do you have one? I said, yeah. He goes, may I say hello to him? I said, he goes like this, hey. Yeah.
That's our inner child.
I think, absolutely, my inner child is like, shit, hey, you do less. No, but the inner child would be extremely satisfied with the outcome. And I would tell him, don't be scared. If I had to tell him something, I would say, don't be scared. Because I was scared of everything. And now I'm not scared of anything. Woo. Thank you. And somebody said, if you pass, when you pass, what do you think you'll miss most? And without thinking, I said, music. Mine. But I love music. Music. I don't think anybody really knows how much I love music, like how much music means to me. Musicians and bands and concerts that I went to, I don't know why, I don't know how. I played with Smokey Robinson the last 2 years, and I mean, he's a living icon, and there he is, happy to play golf with me. And I think music was a way that it filled the silence, I would say, with things that I would learn from and people that I would meet because of music. And I've been trying to play the guitar since I was 15, and I went and sold flowers when I was 15 on the corner of Nordhoff and Tampa, maybe somewhere out there by the Black Angus on the corner of the Burger King, and I sold flowers for 2 days to make $100 to buy a guitar. And how I said I had quitted everything. I've been playing the guitar every day for the last 13 years.
You have them in your dressing room.
Fucking terrible. I'm still terrible at it. But I'm gonna keep playing. I love it. I love playing the guitar.
A little birdie told me that
Yeah.
Santana has played an important role in your life.
Yeah. Again, running home from school, singing Evil Ways and hearing Evil Ways in the car, and you never think that guy, text me the other day, has been just, and at a time when I was really lost, he kind of wrapped his arms around me and told me that, to to love myself and to that things would get better. And that voice, just you have to find your light and soul, and your spirit, your light. So mine always makes fun. He goes, his light bends to my light, but it really does. He really did. And then Eddie Van Halen, God rest his soul. He and I were very close friends as well. So. Even Ted Nugent, red hat, got him. But everybody that was on my wall growing up, I became friends with.
Wow.
And I went to my first Kiss concert by myself when I was with my friends. And then they played for 50 years. And last December, I took Mayan to Madison Square Gardens, and we went to the last 2 Kiss shows. I took Mayan. So to go as a 16-year-old and then be a pinche viejo todo, gray hair, la chingada, trying to be young, and take your daughter, who's 28, with you to see your favorite band growing up was beautiful.
Now, we've done a lot of looking back today. How about forward? We got another season of Lopez versus Lopez.
That's right. Yeah. So, we, as a cast, get along incredibly well. We all love each other. Debbie is a great partner and collaborator. We had a great run. This 10 episodes were amazing. So I know that, and we share the same philosophy that once we get our teeth into season 3, we're not going anywhere for 3 or 4 or 5 years to come. So thinking forward, we're gonna get past 120, which I did with my first show on Lopez versus Lopez, and that would be beautiful.
Shout out to NBC and Universal.
Thank you, NBC, Universal. Yeah.
And what else? You have your stand-up coming up?
I think I'm just happy with the show, and that everybody here would come and spend a little bit of your time with me. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And to close up today,
And you too. Thank you. I love you. I have a lot of respect for you.
Oh, thank
Remember I said, if you want some, if you want like a deep, if you want to ask me questions that I think, people would be, I don't know, maybe too personal, that I said that I would answer those questions.
And you did, and that story's coming out next month, tied to award season, because we need to get this guy an Emmy, for God's sakes.
Just give me some popcorn out of the way.
To close up, I know how important it is for you to give back.
Yes.
If you can talk a little bit about your foundation.
Yeah, I would just say, when I was, I fell into the trap that didn't go to the doctor when I didn't feel well. And my kidneys could have been saved when I was 18. So when I felt better in the hospital, I thought, and I really didn't want to be a poster person for any disease, but I thought when I felt better a day and a half later that I would not turn my back on people who needed help. And in the last 19 years, I have not. And we're going to keep doing it.
Do you have any closing words for your audience?
I love you guys. Thank you so much. And I'm honored that you would take your time out of your lives to be here. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, George Lopez.
Thank you.